The shocking biblical truth about Iran's fate, confirmed prophecy revealed at midnight. The clock struck 12. The witching hour when truths long buried clawed their way to the surface. The eerie glow of a single candle flickered across the damp walls of an ancient cellar in Tehran, casting long shadows that danced with unsettling fervor. Whispers filled the air, faint echoes of long-forgotten prophecies, tales of apocalyptic visions that sent chills down the spine. Tensions brewed in the dark. Outside, the city lay silent, its heartbeat muted by the weight of secrets that felt as tangible as the cool stone beneath their feet. In the flickering light, a group gathered, faces tense with anticipation. Iranians of every background, scholars, street vendors, and even the unwitting tourist had become bound by a shared urgency, a desperate need to uncover the truth that lay hidden in ancient texts. The end is near, they murmured, as if speaking it aloud would manifest their darkest fears. A woman's eyes glistened with terror as she clutched a tattered book, its pages yellowed with age. She whispered of a prophecy about Iran, a prophecy that promised turmoil if ignored. Beneath her trembling hands, the words seemed alive. Outside the cellar, a sudden scream pierced the stillness, raw and ragged. Faces turned, eyes wide with panic. What could possess someone to scream like that in the dead of night? Was it a warning or simply fear's cruel grasp? The whispers faded, replaced by a heavy silence that wrapped around them like a shroud. Each breath felt labored, an emotional weight pressing down on their chests. The shadows grew thicker, darker, as if the secrets of the world were creeping ever closer. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the group regained their focus, the stone walls seemed to hum with a sinister energy. The woman with the book spoke again, her voice steady but betraying the quiver of fear. A great calamity will befall us, but it can be changed if we act now. She locked eyes with each member of the group, urgency radiating from her like heat. What could they possibly do against a fate foretold? The candle sputtered ominously, smoke twisting into dark shapes above. Would they heed the ancient warning or become mere pawns in a game larger than themselves? An electric tension filled the air, igniting the night with a blend of terror and hope. What steps would they take? Would it be enough? Only time would tell, but one thing was clear. The veil had been lifted, and the night was just the beginning of their unraveling journey. The echo of the distant scream still hung in the air, a restless ghost that seemed to snarl and twist among the gathered group. It shook their resolve, making hearts race like thunder in a summer storm. Faces glimmered under the candle's flicker, sweat pooling at the temples as fears crept closer. Every person present felt the weight of the moment pressing down upon them. The woman clutched the book tighter, her knuckles white against the fabric of her shawl. Listen. The prophecy, it speaks of a great fire descending from the heavens, consuming everything in its path. But there's hope if we act now. Her voice trembled, but the fire in her eyes burned brighter. A middle-aged man in the back shouted, "What action? What can we do against a divine decree? Are we to fight the heavens themselves?" The cynical laugh that followed sent shivers through those present. He immediately regretted his outburst as the other faces hardened, eyes narrowing with a mix of indignation and fear. "Silence!" Another voice rang out. A young woman with fierce determination took a step forward, her eyes flashing with defiance. "I refuse to believe that our fates are merely written. We have the power to write our own destinies." A murmur of agreement rippled among the group, though it was laced with uncertainty. The candlelight warped their shadows, twisting their figures into ghastly shapes as they grappled with her words. They needed direction. The symbols, the woman with the book exclaimed. Their clues hidden in these pages. They show us how to avert disaster. She flipped through the brittle pages, heart racing as she read the ancient script. The old texts they mention a gathering at dawn, near the Alborz Mountains. Something must be done there. We need to uncover the truth that dwells within. Are we all in? A tall, wiry man asked, his voice barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of their shared burden. Eyes darted around the cellar, sensing the heavy breath of decision settle over them. Would they stake everything on unverified prophecies? On words written centuries ago? Just then, the sudden crash of glass shattered the heavy silence. A violent jolt ran through the group as a figure burst through the door, gasping for air, eyes wild. They're coming. The enforcers are searching for anyone who stirs the whispers. Gasps erupted, panic surged. We need to hide, someone urged. The woman with the book looked at each person, fervor seeping into her voice. No, this is our chance to act. If we run now, we're just confirming their fears. We must stand our ground. The group chewed on the weight of her words, but fear loomed large. Would they risk everything for a prophecy? Could they really defy fate? Voices crackled, arguing where they should go, and nervous energy pulsed in the cramped space. In the midst of the chaos, the candle flickered one last time before plunging them into darkness. A collective intake of breath echoed loudly through the shadowy cellar, dread coiling like a snake around their hearts. The darkness wrapped around them tighter, and with every shadow came the feeling of being watched, hunted. What would happen next? As the dim light faded completely, a loud knock echoed at the cellar door. Open up. We know you're in there. It's time to face the truth of your fate. Would they emerge heroes, or become merely pieces shuffled in a game determined by powers beyond their reach? The dawn was approaching, and with it, the answers they sought or the end they feared. The pounding at the door shattered the silence, each thud echoing like the drum of impending doom. The group recoiled, hearts pounding in their chests like caged beasts. The darkness felt alive, closing in on them as their breath synced with the rhythm of dread. Fear tightened their throats, and whispers filled the air, fragments of panic, confusion, and urgent pleas for safety. Do we hide? Someone asked, voice quaking. Or do we fight? The young woman stepped further into the fold, her silhouette just visible against the flickering light of the candles that struggled to maintain their flame. We fight. If we let them in, we seal our fate. We must stand together. But hesitation lingered, heavy as a storm cloud about to break. The wiry man shook his head, sweat glistening on his forehead. What if we're wrong? What if the prophecy is just a trap? The woman clutched her book closer, her nails digging into the leather cover as if it could shield her. It's not a trap. It's our only chance. If the enforcers come in, we will be silenced forever. We must decipher this prophecy now. A shrill scream echoed from outside, piercing through the tension. The group flinched. What horrors awaited them beyond that heavy door? A chill crept down spines, sending shivers through even the bravest hearts. Only evil lurks in the dark. Something terrible is coming. We must act, she urged, her voice rising above the thrumming heartbeats of the others. The knocking intensified, more insistent now, aggressive. Open up. You have no choice, came a gravelly voice from the other side, dripping with authority and malice. They exchanged fearful glances, each person wrestling with a decision that could mean life or death. Listen, what do we really know about this prophecy? Whispered an older woman, her face etched with worry. What if it's all just stories? What if we're not meant to change anything? I'd rather believe in hope than surrender to fear. The young woman shot back, her eyes alight with conviction. But even she faltered as the walls felt like they were closing in. Shadows danced in the candlelight, and the gnawing feeling of being utterly trapped swept over them all. Without warning, the door cracked, just a sliver, as if pushed by something unseen or perhaps even a hesitant soul. In that moment, one of the group gave in to panic. They rushed toward the door, pulling it open slightly. An arctic chill swept inside, and the air grew electric. The room erupted with shouts, hands shooting out in desperation to pull them back. But it was too late. The door swung open wide, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness, eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger. "You're too late," the figure hissed, voice like ice piercing through flesh. "Your time is up. The fire will come, and you cannot escape it." Screams erupted. Chaos ensued. As the group recoiled, the figure stepped inside, cloaked in shadows and evil, looming over them like a harbinger of doom. "Get back!" the woman with the book shouted, instinct pulling her fists tight. "We must not let him control us." But his laugh, sharp and mocking, filled the space. "Control? You mistake me for a master. I am merely the herald of your fate. Choose now." In that moment, a decision needed to be made. They were backed against the wall, the figure's eyes boring into them with an insatiable hunger. Would they fight against the odds, igniting a spark of hope? Would they embrace their fate, whatever it might hold? As the figure advanced, the candlelight flickered dangerously low, each flicker a countdown to the inevitable. Whatever choice they made in the next heartbeat could change everything: life, death, freedom, or captivity. And then, amidst the swirling chaos, one whisper broke through the noise. A chilling question that hung in the air, heavy with dread and anticipation. What if the fire is already inside us? The answer awaited them, just beyond the shadowy figure's gaze. But that truth could either save them or consume them entirely. What had they truly set in motion? Panic flooded the room, mirrored in the hollow echoes of their gasping breaths. The cloaked figure loomed taller, its presence encompassing every corner of the confined space, as if it absorbed the light itself. Fear gripped the group, paralyzing some while others were caught in a tug-of-war between rebellion and surrender. "Decide," the figure barked, voice a thunderclap that rattled their bones. The air thickened, each heartbeat a desperate plea for clarity. The young woman clutched her book, her knuckles white. She could feel the rapid pulses of her companions vibrating through the tense silence. "Fate's not written yet," she shouted, taking a step forward. A spark of defiance ignited in her chest. "We have the power to choose our path. Choosing means nothing if the fire burns within you," the figure replied, its eyes narrowing to slits that bore a promise of torment. It stepped closer, allowing them to absorb the depth of darkness that trailed behind. A deep chill swept through the room, making the candles sputter in alarm, flickering their last breaths. Time stretched, as if the very fabric of reality was waiting for a decision. "Fight, we fight," the wiry man exclaimed, adrenaline surging through him. His voice took on a fervent edge, rallying the others. They whispered encouragement among themselves, rubbing against fear like friction igniting a flame. But doubts still simmered in the crowd, mixing with trepidation to birth hesitation. What if he is telling the truth? One voice trembled from the back. What if we're only feeding whatever darkness he speaks of? Then let us face it together. The older woman shot back, her strength newfound in the heat of the moment. We cannot let shadows dictate our lives. With each word exchanged, weaponized by fear yet tempered by hope, a swell of courage built among them. Through the flickering shadows, they formed a wall of resolve. "What is this prophecy?" someone inquired, voice steady in the face of chaos. "It speaks of the fire within," the young woman called out, her eyes blazing. "It is a power, our power. If we can summon it, we can fight back." The figure paused, an unexpected shift in its demeanor. "You think you can awaken such power? Become what you fear. Watch us," she challenged, heart racing against the rhythm of their impending fate. A glow ignited in her core, pulsing with the weight of ancient secrets woven in her book. She felt the warmth bubble forth, rising higher. The others watched in awe, hesitation slipping away. "I feel it," someone called, echoing her sentiment, as warmth began to permeate the room. Their breaths, once shallow with fear, now synced in a symphony of surrender to something larger. "No, you can't," the figure howled, fury seeping through its icy facade. "You'll unleash a fire you cannot control." Suddenly, it lunged forward, shadows swirling around it like a raging tempest. The group instinctively closed ranks, their unity pulsing like a heartbeat. They raised their hands, forming a barrier against the looming threat, trusting in the awakening fire. What happened next felt like a jolt of lightning. Heat exploded, overwhelming and bright, echoing screams torn from both sides. With a flash, the walls trembled, and everything turned bright as day for an instant, illuminating the dark creature before them. As the light faded back into a suffocating darkness, it left a sense of foreboding in its wake. The figure vanished into the shadows, its laughter echoing like the remnants of nightmares, lingering in the air. Silence enveloped them, broken only by intermingled gasps and shaky breaths. They had confronted the darkness, but was it truly vanquished? Is it over? Someone dared to ask into the gloom, but the uncertainty clung thick, indistinguishable from the lingering shadows. Not even close, the young woman declared, her resolve shaking only slightly. We've only just begun. If the fire burns inside us, we must learn to wield it. And as they stood together in the leftover fog of what once was, a chilling realization set in. Could they truly harness the flame, or was it destined to consume them? In that delicate balance, another question loomed, threading through the air. Who will guide us through the dark? They could feel it, the weight of the answer pressing heavily around them. The journey was far from over. Dangers lay ahead, but so did revelations. One thing was clear. The grip of fate was tightening, and soon, they'd have to face something even greater than the figure in the shadows. The air was thick. Each breath felt like pulling weight from a treacherous well. Their determination had lit something inside them, but as quickly as that brightness flared, it left them breathless, the shadows closing in like a vice. Nervous glances ricocheted around the room, hearts pounding in a chaotic symphony. Maybe he was lying, a voice whispered, carrying the weight of doubt that threatened to drown them. What if unleashing this power only sinks us deeper into darkness? No, the young woman's voice, raw and fierce, cut through the shadows. We felt it. We have the fire, the power. We can learn to control it. She gripped her book tightly, the pages feeling like a lifeline soaked in hope and fear. What if it consumes us instead? Someone muttered. Then we face it together. The wiry man's voice had a defiance echoing in his words. He stepped closer, desperation surfacing in his wide eyes. United, we stand against the fire. Divided, we fall. Just as resolve began to swell among them, the shadows darted like broken wings, flickering at the edges of their vision. They felt the figure's presence looming like a thundercloud overhead, laughter reverberating, haunting their thoughts. Watch how your power fades. You're only stoking the embers of your own demise. The chilling voice called out, a specter whispering fears tailored just for them. The darkness tightened its grasp, and a frigid pulse swept through the air, snuffing out the shimmers of resolve that had just begun to take flight. No, again it was the young woman pushing forward. We are more than shadows. We just lit the spark. The warmth in her heart began to reignite within the collective dread, igniting faces with fleeting hopes. But a shudder coursed through the group as the walls around them began to pulse with a dark rhythm, echoing the throbs of their racing hearts. They blinked rapidly, a tingling sensation creeping over their skin. Something's coming. The warning rang out, a plea masked as an urgency. The moment devoured all the light, and shadows stretched like tendrils around them. Silence drowned everything, enveloping them all in something that felt almost alive, breathing, shifting restlessly. What do we do? One asked, voice shaky. Panic rippled through their ranks, eyes wide, mouths quivering with unspilled dread. Focus, remember the warmth, the young woman instructed, grounding her own resolve in the chaos. We need to harness it. Together. Collective breaths quickened as they joined hands in a circle, their palms crashing together like a drumbeat, a rallying cry against the creeping dread. The flames flickering in their hearts began to swirl, intertwining, and slowly, light seeped through the cracks of darkness, scattering its weight into arcs of vapor. Relief washed over them, but it was fleeting. The laughter was returning stronger. Exultant, the figure reappeared, wreathed in swirling shadows, its form shifting and morphing, a grotesque puppet in a dark theater. You think you can wield it? It howled. Your flames will drown in the void. No, the wiry man countered, panic fueling his voice. You don't get to decide that. We will burn brighter. As they channeled their fear into conviction, a brightness surged through them, erupting in spirals of fire that illuminated the room. Glimmers of hope weaved through their shared hearts, but a darkness expanded, swallowing the flames, a shadow against their resolve. The cloaked figure laughed, a sound full of menace that felt more like a prophecy. Let us see how long you hold onto that spark. The real game is yet to begin. In that moment, a crack in the walls pulsed. Their arena seemed to shift, shaking the ground beneath them. Eyes widening, they braced themselves, terror mixing with anticipation. What lay beyond that fissure was unknown, shrouded in uncertainty. What now? Asked the old woman, her voice a tremor vibrating back in the uncertainty. Whatever it is, we face it, the young woman said, the light in her eyes brightening. Together. But as the darkness surged forward, the room split, and a realization washed over them. To stand against the figure would mean confronting their deepest fears and something much worse. What awaited them beyond that crack? A different nightmare, or the answers they so desperately sought? The ground trembled violently, walls shuddering as though alive. Dust fell like snowflakes, stinging their eyes. Confusion gripped them. What should have been a moment of clarity turned into chaos. The air felt electric, crackling with unseen forces. Stay together, shouted the wiry man, clutching hands with the others like a lifeline. The girl's heart raced. She felt the pulse of their unity, a flicker of something more than just fear. She sensed a flicker of purpose burning through their shared grips. The cloaked figure loomed larger as the crack widened, shadows spilling forth like ink spilled on fresh paper. Its laughter echoed, wrapping around them, tightening like a noose. You think your flames can withstand the storm? Brace yourselves. Suddenly, a gust of wind burst through the widening fissure, whipping past them, cold and shrill. It carried whispers, fragments of lost realities and tormented souls crying out for rescue. The air thickened with sorrow, weaving through their resolve like an insidious thread. We can't yield to this. We can't listen. The young woman shouted, grounding herself. She thought of the fire they ignited together, its warmth infusing her spirit. Channel the fear. Focus on the light. With a collective shout, they tightened their grip, feeling heat surge through their palms. Flames began to flicker again, igniting their bonds with glistening fervor. But shadows laughed. They curled around her efforts, knotting together to form grotesque shapes, horrific faces swirling in the dark, mirroring their fears. What if we lose everything? The old woman murmured, vulnerability breaking through her voice. Then we lose together. The wiry man replied, his confidence unbroken. We sacrifice nothing if we fall united. Just as the shadows seemed to pull tighter, a blinding light erupted from within the circle, expanding with their collective willpower. It pushed against the darkness like a protective shield, vaporizing clouds of dread that threatened their minds. The light revealed their fears but also their strength, making them visible in stark contrast. The figure shrieked, a sound that shook the very fabric of the room. Pathetic! Your bravery is no match for the curse you hold. With a swift motion, the darkness clawed at the edges of their vision, reaching hungrily for their light, threatening to snuff it out. Keep pushing, the young woman encouraged, feeling the warmth from the crowd grow stronger. She locked eyes with each of them, feeling their fears transform into something tangible, a bond forged in fire and despair. The ground beneath them quaked as cracks spiderwebbed outward. The shadowy figure writhed, now angry, knotted in its own darkness. You cannot defy fate, it bellowed. But the group focused harder, sweat glistening on their brows, breaths coming out in sharp bursts. The light expanded further, warping the oppressive darkness surrounding them, creating a barrier against despair. What emerged was not just power, but a sense of purpose, thrusting them forward. And then, silence. The shadows receded, swirling reluctantly back into the depths, leaving behind a glimmer of hope and the raw pulse of fear in the air. The fissure flickered, but they held strong, basking in their collective brilliance. But in that brief moment of triumph, the world shuddered again, a deep, echoing sound reverberating through the ground. They turned as a new form emerged from the crack, a figure cloaked in shimmers of darkness. Eyes burning like embers, a voice slithered through the tension, smooth and cold. You think this battle is won? The real darkness is yet to come, children. This was merely a whisper. Terror bubbled within each heart, a cold dread curling in their chests. What awaited them next? The bright flame they had just ignited now flickered precariously, as a more sinister storm brewed on the horizon. How would they face this next challenge? Long shadows stretched behind them, merging reality with something far more sinister. What now? The young woman whispered, her eyes locked on the dark figure that laughed with a cruel satisfaction. The walls seemed to close in again, and with every heartbeat, their fears crept closer. The ground shook violently again, more intense than before. Panic flashed in their eyes as they felt the palpable weight of darkness press upon them. The cloaked figure's laughter echoed, deep and hollow, as if the very building was mocking their defiance. Shadows whipped around them, swirling fiercely. They felt as if phantoms danced just out of sight, pulling their focus toward a chasm of despair. Eyes forward, the wiry man yelled, shaking the others from their trance. But the shadows were relentless. They mingled with the dust, swirling through the air, thickening with every breath. They could hear the whispers more clearly, now lost voices speaking of fear, betrayal, and dread. Each word twisted around their hearts, threatening to seize control of their thoughts. The young woman's heart pounded. "We need to stand firm," she shouted, her voice rising against the encroaching darkness. "Feel the fire within us. Don't listen to their lies." With this, they grasped each other's hands tighter. Their collective light flickered, threatening to dim. But as each soul fueled the flames with belief and courage, an angry blaze surged up from their unity. "Courage!" the old woman cried, her voice cracking but fervent. But as the light shone, the shadows contended, congealing into a monstrous form. Faces appeared, hollow and tortured, mouths gaping wide in a silent scream. The figure in the darkness coiled around them, eyes glinting like coal. "You think your resolve can end this? You're fools to think unity can shield you from the truth lurking in shadows." Suddenly, a wall of fire erupted around them, a swirling ring born from their bravery. It was both a weapon and a shield. As the flames blazed, the shadows recoiled, revealing glimpses of the space beyond the crack. They saw darkness, yes, but also whispers of hope. Glimmers of a path, desolate yet inviting. But just as they thought they could break free, the figure lunged forward, stretching its shadowy limbs, attempting to grab onto their essence, pulling them toward the abyss that awaited. "Don't let go," the wiry man shouted, panting heavily. "Remember who we are." The young woman felt the energy of the group surge. Once again her heart swelled as a memory flashed through her mind, of laughter under starlit skies, of moments where they felt invincible. "Together, we are more than this darkness." With renewed focus, they poured everything into their flames, igniting a blinding wave that shoved the darkness back. The shrieks of tormented souls filled the air, mixing with the roar of their flames, a chaotic symphony of defiance. But the figure didn't yield. It laughed again, a sound that made the hairs on the back of their necks stand on end. "I will not be extinguished. You simply delay the inevitable. You'll see soon enough then." In a sudden explosion of sound and fury, the fissure erupted further, sending stones and debris flying. They braced for impact, breathing heavily, preparing to fight against an overwhelming wave of darkness that surged forward like an unstoppable tide. "Hold on," the young woman screamed, her voice piercing through the chaos. But doubt crept in like a thief in the night. What if their light wasn't enough? What if they could not survive what lay beyond the shadows? As the darkness rolled closer, she was faced with an unexpected choice: turn back to flee the inevitable, or leap boldly into the unknown. The flames flickered again. The ground shuddered underneath them, threatening to swallow them whole. With their hearts pulsating in their chests, they felt the weight of their decision. "Make your choice," The figure bellowed, voice echoing like thunder. Would they step forward into the darkness to face what lay ahead? Or would they succumb to the chilling whispers of despair that clawed desperately at their minds? Time seemed to stand still as they teetered on the edge of a terrifying abyss. What would they choose? What dark revelations awaited them next? Clenching their hands together, they felt the warmth of their shared energy battling the cold dread emanating from the shadows. Each heartbeat echoed in their ears, a reminder of the life they fought to protect. The decision hung heavy in the air, thick like the impending storm. What if we discover something worse? The old woman whispered, fear steeped in her tone. No, the young woman shouted, cutting through the doubt. We can't let fear dictate our choices. We have to trust in ourselves, in each other. As if mocking her courage, the shadows surged forward, carrying a weight that threatened to crush their resolve. The spectre's eyes glimmered in response, a mirrored reservoir of their worst fears. Such bravado! But courage means little when faced with the weight of truth. The wiry man spat defiantly. We'll take that weight. We'd rather face it than cower and drown in despair. Fueled by anger, their flames intensified, illuminating the enveloping darkness, reflecting back on the tortured faces that writhed in agony. The screams grew louder, a cacophonous echo of despair that clawed at their sanity. What if that's all there is? The young woman shouted into the abyss, her voice trembling but fierce. What if we're just prisoners of our disbelief? With that, the group released a collective shout of affirmation, an explosion of belief that sent shockwaves through the encroaching shadows. They lifted their flames higher, as if channeling the very essence of hope, pushing against the waves of darkness. A glimmer of light broke the veil, revealing a path that twisted and turned into the gaping maw ahead. And yet doubt snaked back in. What lied down that path? An answer echoed back, resonant and haunting. All your sins. This will be your reckoning. The cloaked figure moved closer, dark tendrils grazing their cheeks, leaving a chill in their wake. The truth always comes at a cost. Then we'll pay it together, the young woman insisted, feeling her voice steady like a cool breeze amid the tempest. The wiry man took a deep breath, then shouted, step forward. We face this as one. One by one, they surrendered to the memory of all they had built together, each step a stand against the pain that clawed at their spirit. Flames danced with renewed vigor. As they moved towards the disturbing glow of the fissure ahead, the shadows recoiled, recoiling like snakes afraid of the light, whispering their fears, twisting the reality around them. Remember your past. It will guide you. But the cloaked figure only laughed louder, taunting their resolve. Your past is stitched together with lies. Do you dare accompany misery on this journey? Do you dare confront what you're so afraid of? The fiery wall danced fiercely, struggling to maintain its strength against the pull of despair. Keep going, keep fighting, the old woman cried, her voice bearing the weight of many battles fought, a lifetime's worth of wisdom. With every step, they felt the momentum build, a shot of adrenaline pushing them through the darkness. Yet a deep-rooted sense of dread pulsated beneath their bravery, gnawing at the edges. Are you ready to uncover the truth? To question everything you know and believe? The figure beckoned, its face shifting between shadows of indiscernible forms, each one echoing memories they'd rather forget. Then, just as they felt hope swell, the ground trembled violently beneath them. They realized they were no longer on solid ground. Run! The wiry man shouted, but it was too late. The chasm below roared, an insatiable hunger that pulled at their very souls. The swirling darkness reached up like jagged teeth, hungry and merciless. The flames flickered desperately, barely illuminating a way forward, their heat becoming feeble against the encroaching void. Just as they braced for the inevitable, each faced what they feared the most, the reality of their own failures. The choices they'd left untouched. In that moment, they were made to confront one burning question. What sacrifices would they have to make to emerge unscathed, if they could at all? The void yawned, wider, everything they feared embodied before them, as they teetered once again on the cusp of despair. Would they face it? Would they plunge into the unknown, risking everything to find peace? Find the light within you, the young woman pleaded, but the shadows stilled, waiting, ready to pounce. What truth awaited them in the depths of their fears? Would it bring them salvation or doom? The moment their feet left the ground, it felt like time froze, the world hanging in a fragile balance. The darkness clawed upwards, grasping at their limbs, pulling them towards an unfathomable abyss. Hearts pounding, the wiry man's voice sliced through the chaos. Hold on to each other. He illuminated the word, together, like a beacon, a lifeline amidst the impending doom. The young woman stretched her arm out, lacing her fingers with the old woman's, shaking with fear yet determined. We can't let go. We can't lose one another. Her words were fierce, a wildfire stoked by desperation. But the blackness beneath them wasn't just a bottomless pit. It whispered sibilant and enticing, ringing in their ears. You can escape. Let go and you will be free. A horrifying question gripped the air. What freedom could be gained by surrendering? The shadows twisted, morphing into twisted shapes, their faces filled with torment. Memories long buried rose to the surface, clawing at their minds with the jagged edges of regret. Choices made, words left unspoken, moments squandering everything they had tried to forget was flaring back to life, raw and unrelenting as the chasm yawned wider. The old woman's breath caught in her throat, her grip tightening. Is this what we become? Lacking faith? Unable to transcend our failures? Her eyes brimmed with unshed tears, searching her companions for glimmers of hope. The wiry man's face was resolute, a facade of calm battling the storm raging within. We must stand firm, refuse to be consumed. They locked their eyes onto the flickering flames, reminded that their fire was not only a source of light, but also a testament to their unbreakable bond. The young woman had to believe they were more than just their past mistakes. They could reclaim their narratives, write their own endings if only they had the courage to fight. Step back, she shouted into the roaring void, action igniting in her veins. We won't let you take us. We will confront you. The shadows shivered, recoiling as if the light of their fury was a weapon that end that moment. There was an opening, a shimmer of light, a possible escape. But what lay beyond it? The flickering glow conveyed both warmth and dread, inviting yet foreboding. Was the truth they searched for worth the risk? The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of rage. How can you dare challenge the very essence of your being? The wiry man stepped forward, growing bolder. Because we are not defined by our fears. We define ourselves through our choices. His words unleashed a shockwave, resonating off the walls of the fissure, causing the shadows to falter. A tremor rolled through the ground as they gathered their courage, feeling the weight of their pasts pulling them back, but they kept moving towards the light. Each step forward was a choice, an act of rebellion against despair and doubt. But risk hung in the air. What if we lose everything? The old woman whispered, a tremor of disbelief in her voice, even as she forced her feet onward. Then we find more. The young woman gasped, her voice rising. More than we ever knew we could have. Just as they reached the edge of the light, the chasm trembled violently again, like some sentinel marking the thin line between hope and oblivion. In that crucial moment, they saw faces of lost souls within the shadows. Friends and family, those they had truly loved, each bearing different expressions of pain and longing. Each face screamed silently, "Remember us!" The heat of their flames was nearly extinguished, their hands beginning to slip apart. Wait, the wiry man shouted in a last-ditch effort. Together! He grasped their hands tighter, feeling the warmth of their connection, pulsing like a heartbeat in the dark. Only then did they realize, it was more than just each other that mattered. It was everything they had fought for, the love, the memories, the bonds that tethered them to the world. In this moment hanging between hope and despair, they saw the flickering path ahead, charged with energy, ready for them to step forward into the unknown. But a shadow curled around their feet, whispering threats in sinister tones. Do you truly believe you can escape? The real reckoning has only just begun. And just like that, the light flickered again, seeming to pulse weakly as hesitance crept back in. What truth awaited them on the other side? Would it be a gift of forgiveness or reveal their deepest suffering anew? The darkness roiled, a living entity wrapping around them, threatening to drag them deeper into despair. The whispers grew louder echoes of their failures, their fears, clawing at their minds. But within that darkness, embers of hope glimmered, fueled by their unity. "Together!" the young woman shouted, her voice cutting through the oppressive shroud like a sword of light. She tightened her grip on the wiry man's hand, feeling the pulse of determination surge through them all. Each face around her mirrored a flicker of resolve, a promise not to waver in the face of overwhelming odds. A heartbeat from the chasm. The shadows danced nervously, sensing the shift in their spirit. "You think your bonds can shield you?" The cloaked figure sneered, its voice dripping disdain. "You will regret this defiance. Regret is an unyielding darkness." But the group held fast, their voices rising in unison. "We refuse to be shackled by regret. We choose to embrace our truth." The shadows recoiled, swirling in agitation as they realized the strength of their collective will. The young woman felt warmth radiate from their joined hands, an electric glow igniting around them, pushing back against the darkness inch by inch. Each heartbeat, each whispered invocation of courage, propelled them further into the light. "Believe," the wiry man bellowed, his glare locking onto the specter, unwavering. The flames pulsed with every chant of bravery, every acknowledgement of their past, fear mingling with strength. They would not succumb to despair. Instead, they channeled it into their fire, a fire made all the brighter by their unity. Through the cacophony of shadows, the fissure emitted a startling brightness, a beacon guiding them forward. The cloaked figure screamed, writhing in growing fury as the light expanded, forcing the dark back towards the depths. A surge of heat enveloped them. They could feel the warmth of hope wrap around their hearts, pulsing like a living thing. "Keep pushing," the young woman urged, each word igniting the fire once more. They pressed forward, their shared light piercing through the consuming void, unveiling a path illuminated with possibilities. They could almost taste the freedom on the other side, a promise wrapped in the truth they dared to confront. As the darkness writhed and twisted, the specter lost its hold. "You'll pay for this," it howled, its voice echoing like thunder. "The reckoning is inevitable." But as they drew closer to the radiant glow, the shadows dissipated, snuffing out under the roar of their courage. With hands held tight, they stepped through the fissure, hearts racing with each pulse of hope. The world before them exploded in color, warmth flooding their senses like a long-awaited rain. They stood on a precipice overlooking a vast landscape of vibrant hues, fields of flowers dancing in the wind, skies washed in golden sunlight. A bright horizon stretched before them, washing away the remnants of fear that clung to their skin. Over the hills, a gentle breeze tugged at their clothing, smelling of blooming possibility. It was as if the universe exhaled a sigh of relief, a farewell to their fears, a welcome to their newfound strength. "Did we do it?" the old woman breathed, her eyes wide with disbelief. They all stood stunned, hearts pounding but filled with a deep sense of peace. "Yes," the young woman smiled, tears brimming in her eyes. "We confronted our fears. We chose to write our own destiny." In that moment, the shadows no longer felt like a distant nightmare looming over them. Instead, they became reflections of their past, a reminder of their resilience, as they turned to one another. A family forged through fear and fire. Each of them could feel the weight of the journey lift, replaced by a shared commitment to move onward, to embrace the future they had fought so hard to reclaim. Their bond shimmered like the sun above, a radiant reminder that they were never alone. As they stepped further into their new beginning, the promise of tomorrow glimmered in their hearts, the shadows merely lessons of strength they would carry forward. And so, hand in hand, they crossed into a new chapter, a bright dawn that echoed with their shared laughter, the flame of courage forever ignited within them. But this journey was only the beginning. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on the next exclusive story. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help others find this journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What do you think comes next for them? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything.